Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of The Iron Claw. This movie is directed by Sean Durkin, who previously directed Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. And the movie stars Zac Efron, Lily James, with Jeremy Allen White and Hulk Mulaney. The plot of this movie tells the story of a Von Erich family, a very prominent wrestling family in the 1980s from Texas. And if you don't know their story, they were known around the world. They were one of the first wrestling families that defined pro wrestling. And unfortunately, their story is a very tragic one. And this movie dives into the highs and the lows of their lives. Now, going into this movie, as a wrestling fan, I was really excited because this was a family that I remember about 10, 15 years ago I knew nothing about. I heard this name, Von Erichs, and I thought they were some German family in pro wrestling. But then I saw more information about them, and they released the Vice TV Dark Side of the Ring episode about them, and my eyes were opened up. I was like, wow, how did I go this long without knowing about these people? So when they announced they were making a movie about them, I was happy because I was like, this is probably one of those things in wrestling that a lot of, mainstream audiences don't know about. So I feel like this movie should be told. However, I was hoping that it'd be told right. I didn't want it to be just kind of a puff movie about this family without diving into the dramatic stuff, but at the same time, I didn't want this movie to be super, super sad. I didn't want the focus of this movie to be on the tragedy and the deaths and all the dark side of this family because they were more than that. Did I enjoy this movie? I did. Very much. Here's why. Let me start with the acting in this movie. Everyone involved in this film, for the most part, did a good job. Everyone directly involved with the family of these characters knocked it out of the park. Yeah, some characters didn't get as much screen time as others, but it's okay because certain characters were more important in the storytelling aspect of this movie than others, which I was okay with. Let me start with the man himself, Zac Efron. Wow, did he transform his appearance for this role? He looks like a gorilla. He puts on so much weight, so much muscle for this film that he's almost unrecognizable. With, the surgery he had in his jaw a couple years back, with all the muscle mass he's put on, you can hardly recognize that that's the same kid from High School Musical. He's really transformed himself. Zac Efron plays Kevin Von Erich, this kind of soft-spoken yet heart of gold type character that is the main character of this film. We get narration from him at the beginning of the film and the end of the film, and he's the character that we follow. He's the one the audiences kind of cling to throughout this film. He's a lot like Tom Hardy in the film Lawless. He's like the older brother who doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, his actions kind of speak louder than words, and it's almost like he doesn't have to say anything because the way he acts and the things that he does kind of speak volumes. Jeremy Allen White as Carrie Von Erich, uh, really good. I mean, Jeremy Allen White is excellent in Shameless. He's very good in the TV show The Bear, and so I was really excited to see what he would do in this movie, and he gave some of the most emotional scenes in this film, and I'm really glad he was a part of this movie. And then two newcomers, for me at least, Harris Dickinson, who played the oldest brother, David Von Erich, really good, really well done. He was the older brother, and it just, the way he helped his younger siblings, but also the character in himself, really well done. And then a younger brother, Mike Von Erich, played by Stanley Simons. He's kind of the weaker ones of the family, at least physically. But the good thing about this movie is all of the brothers had their distinctive personalities. They all were different in their own way, yet together as a brotherhood, as a family, it was beautiful to watch. It was really nice to see these brothers have each other's back, try to lift each other up when they were in need, help each other out, play, laugh, just have a really good time. That's the one strength of this movie is the brotherhood that's depicted in this movie. Their bond is unbreakable, and whenever something bad happens to one of them, it's almost as if they all feel it because they're just so strong and so united. Um, Holt Michelini as the father, Fritz von Erich. I'm really glad he got a role like this. This actor is usually in small bit parts and side roles, and he's definitely come a long way from Men of Honor back in early 2000s. I'm glad he finally has, I guess you'd call it a leading role, but a mainstay role like this as the patriarch of the family. Now, he is a very important part of this movie because he is, what some may consider to be the driving force of the Von Erich family. He's very tough, very hard on his kids because he was a pro wrestler. He achieved all these things. And so he kind of wanted this to be ingrained and instilled in his children's lives, which could be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing. But he wanted his kids to succeed, and he drove them and pushed them, and you may say too hard on them at some points, but he wanted what he thought was best for his kids. And I thought Holt McCallany did a very, very good job in this role. And then you have Maura Tierney as the mother, Rose. Dang, I forgot her name. But she was the mother of the family. I've always liked this actress a lot. Here, she was kind of portrayed as like this God-fearing woman where Fritz Von Erich was the one that was all about the wrestling. He tried to care for his family, protect his family through wrestling, whereas she tried to protect her family through God and religion. And, I thought she'd have a more prominent role in this movie, but it's not as prominent as the father figure in this. However, she does play the motherly role as best she can, considering what her family is made up of, almost all boys. But her role also important. Lily James in this as the love interest of Kevin Von Erich, Zac Efron's character, also really good. She's kind of the outsider that's introduced to this family. So all of the decisions where she tries to kind of separate Kevin to do his own thing away from his family, away from his dad, away from pro wrestling, she's kind of the tether there to kind of keep him grounded in in life, so he doesn't just go crazy and just wrestling. She's kind of the one to kind of help him see things through another light. So her character, very important. Lily James, she's attractive, but also she proves she can act. Now, there are some pro wrestlers in this movie. I noticed three of them. Chava Guerrero, the other two are from AEW, Nick Nemeth and MJF. If you're AEW fans, you probably know who they are. So this movie took on the aspect of pro wrestling, and it handled it really well. This was a lot like The Wrestler, The Fighter, Warrior, the Jackson 5 miniseries, even Lawless in terms of the brotherhood that they display in this movie. It has a nice balance of showing this sport of professional wrestling, but also balancing it with real life. And it does a good job of showing you how things are inside the ring, the glitz, the glamour, the popularity, the physical toll it takes on people, but also behind the scenes. It doesn't try to pretend like professional wrestling is this real thing that's, fictional and magical and everything in front of the camera is real life. It shows you the locker room. It shows you before and after matches. It shows you these professional wrestlers as real people. Almost like Rocky. It's going to show you before the match. It's going to show you after the match. It's going to show you the good times, the wins, but it's also going to show you the losses and the injuries these people sustain. So it didn't try to paint this picture of professional wrestling as this fake magical thing, because they take some bumps and some bruises and they get injured, and they show you that in this film. I only have two gripes in this movie. One of them is that the pro wrestling matches were depicted very, very briefly. Aside from the highlights of the Von Erich family doing moves together and celebrating, in unison, which are really cool scenes, the matches themselves were depicted as very, very short. As in a couple moves, and the match is over. So that's the only thing that I noticed. But again, I like pro wrestling, so I'm going to pick up on that sort of thing. Also, another issue that I had was they take a very prominent wrestling figure with blonde hair, and the guy that portrays him wasn't for me. I think Will Ferrell in Eastbound and Down with that blonde wig and sunglasses did a better job of portraying this very prominent wrestling figure than this certain actor did. Yeah, it had the cadence of this famous wrestler, but it just didn't sound like them. And it's one of those cases where it's like you put all this dedication into this movie and you couldn't get that part right. It's a little confusing. Other than that, this movie is dramatic. This movie is sad and tragic and just it's going to make you cry. But it's also beautiful. It's also very uplifting. And it's also a movie I think like Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer that it has some awareness to it. There are times where, you know, the characters in this movie, don't want to go on anymore because their life is so hard because they felt they were so pushed and under so much pressure. And so in that aspect of it, there is an awareness. There is a call to action to, hey, take notice of this kind of thing, because just like the movie Elvis, you know, things like that can happen where real life people are put in these situations where they feel, like they have to go, go, go and under so much pressure and stress that, a lot of times it doesn't end well. So, because this movie told a really, really beautiful story about this family in this very stressful environment, place and time, but also this industry, it's definitely eye opening. And this movie is very, very well done. A24, Sean Durkin, Zac Efron, all the cast and crew involved with this, very good job. Considering the budget of this was about $15-16 million, this was very, very impressive. So if you like, you know, uh, the wrestler, warrior, the fighter, the sport aspect, but also the real life family drama that goes on with that, I highly recommend this movie. This is the raging bull of wrestling movies. So because of that, I'm going to give the Iron Claw an A. The only more gripping than the Iron Claw itself is the drama in this story. And this is one of the few movies, aside from Star is Born and American Sniper, that made me just lose it at the end. I was like, wow, this story was so profound and so moving that it'll get you emotional. But it's okay, because it's a good thing. So until next time, guys, see ya.